Today we're going to look at the new BR island in Fortnite Creative, show you guys everything from custom loot to how you can create your own custom LTMs and everything that you can and cannot do within this island. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So let's start here in the creative mode. For those of you who are really new to Fortnite Creative and just experienced maybe Fortnite Creative for the first time, you have to select the island first before you can even start creating something on it. And the first thing you have to do is go up to your little portal over here and then you press use. If you press use, you get greeted with the past islands you created, and then you can create a new island over here in this section, create new. And then you will see the first island that pops up over here is the BR island. This might change over time depending on when you watch this video. This is the Battle Royale island, and then you just press confirm, give it a name, and then you can join the island. When you first join the island, it will look something like this, and technically you can already play full Fortnite BR when you just start the game. For starting the game, all you have to do is just press escape or whatever the button is that you're currently using to access the menu and just click start. And you can actually play BR because the game actually spawns 99 bots in for you. Having that said, the bots are not that smart and they're also not that good, so it's technically a free win for you every time. However, if you want to customize your island, you can do that as well. There's a few things which we can change and cannot change. For example, we cannot change anything on the BR island. The BR island in creative is not a normal creative island. It is actually the real BR world that also will change with the updates in Fortnite BR. So we cannot go in and build our custom buildings. It will basically always get removed at the end. However, we have a little platform over here where we can change a few things, settings, add custom devices, loot pools, and stuff like that. The first thing that we get greeted with is these 4 devices. Devices in Fortnite Creative are basically the coding of Fortnite, and here you can set up the first settings that you want to customize. We have our loot pool controller, then we have the deployment console, which allows us to change our dropping mechanism. For example, if you want to drop in a bus or if you want to drop out of a rift. And then we have the most obvious one, the storm controller, and we have the map settings. This one is probably the easiest one out of all of these because it only has 3 settings no matter what you do, and it's basically if you want to have bots in the game, if you want to have vehicles, or if you want to have wildlife enabled. However, having that said, all of these 4 devices are very user-friendly and very easy to use and cannot really change too much. Yes, there's a few settings we can change. For example, we can change the loot pool if we go into our loot settings, and we can change from the actual current VR loot pool to focus on explosive, shotgun, sniper, whatever you want. There's a few presets which you can choose here. You can also choose how many chests should spawn, the rare chest, the floor loot. Basically very basic settings that we can use to customize and create our own first custom game. Same obviously goes for the deployment console. There's nothing really crazy in here. You can decide between battle bus spawning or a rift spawning, and then you can also decide if you want the battle bus to drive faster or slower. The storm controller is probably the most advanced one here and probably takes the most testing to figure out if it actually works for you or not. I would highly recommend just leave it as it is. This is the default storm for BR. If you do not want to plan on creating really custom games in here, just leave it as it is and you'll be fine. There's also another way in how we can change settings in Fortnite Creative, and that is by going into our island settings. We can access these by clicking on our menu button and then we click on My Island. In here you can see you get greeted with a bunch of settings and a bunch of tabs. The most important settings in here are the game and settings tabs. The game tab is basically the overall settings of the game. So for example, how many players you will allow in the game, what are the objectives of the game. If you for example want to have something like 100 kills to end the game, if you want to have respawn game mode or something like that, you can all change that in here. In here you can basically change all the settings of all the mechanics in Fortnite, such as overshield, max shield, health, ammo, and basically anything that is some kind of mechanic in Fortnite. The UI settings obviously change everything from the UI that you see in Fortnite. The tools and description settings are basically the end of the road. If you finish your map and then you want to publish it, you can give it a name, a description, and then if you have publishing rights, you can also publish the map on here. So now we can actually come to the fun stuff, which is the actual custom devices and things that we can really customize our island in. For that, we can yet again go to our island, and then we will be greeted with another tab over here, which is called Creative. In here, we will find every weapon of the game that we can put in and give people. We can find any consumables, and we can also find devices. As said earlier, devices are basically the coding of Fortnite Creative. It just makes it very easy for us to give people custom stuff and customize the game to our liking. Now I want to give you a few devices which will be very helpful along the way if you want to create custom games. The first one being the team settings and inventory device. This one is basically our island settings, but we can customize it for teams and make it individual to players which might need different settings. For example, if you want to create a boss in your game, if you want to give one player a very special team, or for example, if you want to create teams that have different settings on like having more health or having faster speed. In the device, you'll be finding a team name, which team you actually want to customize, and also all of the settings that I showed you guys earlier. Basically everything in here you can also find in the island settings, but this one is obviously specific to the team that you're setting up in here. For example, what we could do is give team 1 the team color of sky blue, and then we can go down here, say they do not have pickaxes, but they should have a minimum health of 500. This could be like maybe a zombie game mode where you give only one team like a crazy amount of health, but they only have like melee weapons, and then you give like another team weapons and stuff like that, and they basically have low health. If we have this on all, this basically means this applies to every player in the game, which is cool because we can now actually give our players starting weapons. For example, we can go here under creative tab, go into weapons, and then let's say we want to give everybody from the game start one gun. Let's say we want to all give them a flintlock. So we're gonna go take the flintlock out, put it into the device, and now we can see that the flintlock is in here, it got accepted, and now we can technically just start the game. We can see that the bots are getting spawned in, and then if we want to jump out, we can just simply jump out, and then we jump out, and as you can already see, we have the flintlock in our inventory. But let's say we want to create custom loot that people can find on the floor, or custom chests that we can create. Is that even possible? Well, technically we cannot create loot floor by ourselves, other than obviously changing it in the settings over there, but we can somewhat create chests. And the cool trick for this one is the supply drop. We can create custom supply drops for the game, and we can use these supply drops to create custom chests. Well, they're not really chests, and they're also not having randomized loot. They have the loot that we give them, but they work as chests, and we can spawn them all over the island completely random. What you have to do for this is spawn at least one of the supply drops on your map. Then you have to go into the supply drop and have to change a few settings. You can leave most of the settings by default, but the most important one is fall speed. We basically want to have the chests already spawned in the game as soon as we start. So the best thing we can do is set this fall speed to no balloon, which basically means it just drops down immediately. And then we can actually leave it like that. We do not really have to change any more settings in here. Now we have to give this one our loot pool. So for example, we want to give this specific chest our loot pool of these items over here. So all we have to do is just drop them in like this, just drop it, drop them all there, will get automatically sucked into the device. If they do not get sucked in, you might have to redo it again like this. Just do it like that. And now the crate of the supply drop will spawn with these items. But this one supply drop will only spawn one chest, and we have an extremely large island. So you can either just copy and paste this one device over and over again, and you will have the same loot for all of the chests, or you can make them one by one. This will obviously take a long time, but this is currently sadly the only way in how we can do this. If you want to reset everything here, just go in here, reset clear all items, and then we can go here and select a different loot pool for them. And now we have a second chest which will spawn loot, which definitely in the end will look something like this, where you have a ton of loot spawns, but it's currently the only way in how you can create custom loot in the game. Other very helpful devices are the HUD controller. This will allow you to customize the HUD for your players. So for example, if you want to have no crosshairs for your players, you want to have no minimap. Another cool device, but a little bit more advanced, and you probably need to have a little bit more knowledge in Fortnite Creative to work with these, is the tracker and the item granner. The item granner is basically the same as the inventory device, but it allows you to just give out weapons. There's like no crazy settings. So for example, if someone reaches a challenge, which you can create with the tracker, you can send them items via this device, which is called the item granner. The tracker is what allows you to give custom challenges. For example, if you want people to have 10 eliminations and get a reward for it, you can do that in here. Now when the game starts, you can see in the top left corner that we will be greeted with a little challenge, which obviously says you have to travel and then our 50 meters. And then now if we land on the BR island and walk forward, you can see that the progress goes up, and as soon as we reach 15, we get our little present, which apparently had nothing in it. What a boring present. One last device which I really want to show you guys, which I think is one of the devices which you probably will use the most, is the elimination manager. This device will basically allow you to drop custom loot if you eliminate someone or if you get eliminations. In here you can do the same thing with all the other devices. You can drop in items that you want to drop when someone dies. So for example, the Cobra DMR, we want to drop it in here. Now we can change it to our custom settings that we want. There's a lot of stuff which you can do in here. So for example, we can change the target type to when we eliminate frogs or boars. But in our case, we want to leave it to players only. And then we can change even if there's randomized drop here, or if we want to have a higher drop chance. So sometimes it doesn't drop, sometimes it drops. But basically, if you just want to let players drop random stuff or drop the items that you put in there, all you have to just do is leave the settings as they are, because they're already perfect for that. and you can just leave it. There's obviously a lot more devices and a lot more settings which go very in depth into Fortnite Creative and can give really unique experience even in this game mode where you can basically not do a lot, but still you can do a lot with these devices. For example, this real-time clock can basically use to create custom in-game events which work with the real time, but that obviously goes very in depth and there's something more for experienced Fortnite Creative builders. And I think most people will be fine by just creating like these little things like dropping custom loot when you get eliminated and changing the settings that are already given into the game without adding any devices. So with that being said, hopefully you learned something today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will see you guys back in the next one. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and bye.